we were both born in the 70s. And the 70s are iconic for a lot of reasons, as are the 80s and 90s. And when you go to a party, you can go as a themed 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s party. We discussed this in the last podcast. However, what are you going to as a 2000 party, the 2010 party, the 2020 party? So it made us sad because the eras that we are going to go back in time and become nostalgic about were very special. And there were several things that they had in common. People were fully present, no constant interruptions. Socializing was intentional. Welcome to Girls Gone Gritty. We're in Bring It On Studios, and I am next to my pal and my partner in crime, Jen Berenius. And today, if you look at our shirts, if you're watching, 1971, the Beastie Boys, we went back in time and we are going to live through our glory days. But before that, I'm going to talk a little bit about a trip that I just got back from. I went to California. And if you guys tune into our episode on surrogacy with Christine Lefebvre, whose husband is the famous Ludovic Lefebvre chef, I went to visit them along with my fairy godchildren and had a very meaningful visit at the same time as my child was playing lacrosse against USC. And we came back with a big win for the weekend.
That's awesome. I was very jealous because at one point I was hopping on board this trip and it just got to be too much, but I really wanted to come with you because it sounds so magical. And then you went to Petit Trois, their restaurant, and
we went to a Lakers game.
You went to a Lakers game.
You got outfitted by Paige.
Right up my alley. I got to be honest, I was regretting after I said no, the power of saying yes. That's usually my way of being, and Farley knows that, of being spontaneous. But every once in a while, responsible Jen puts on her hat and she says she needs to stay home. And unfortunately, we suffered a loss in our lacrosse game, but we did win the other day. We beat Squan. Sorry, Squan.
Well, it was very nice to put a little business with pleasure. Not that lacrosse is business, but when you're flying all the way across the country for one game, it becomes, a financial commitment. My ticket was $1,400. I did get upgraded, which was beautiful. All of a sudden, I'm in first class laying down in a bed. It was exciting. It was very nice. Now we are going to some top threes that are happening in the country right now.
Coming to the East Coast, Hollywood's going to have nothing on us because Hollywood East, number 3, is coming to New Jersey. Old news, but starting to see a big impact here. It's $1 billion project. It's going to create 5,000 jobs. And it's on 300 acres.
Did you tell them that it's Netflix?
No, you're telling them it's Netflix.
Okay, well, Netflix is spending $1 billion to create massive studios. And I have a good friend whose daughter is on the ground as an engineer. Shout out to Mia James, who graduated from Princeton. And this is her first job. And yes, more income to come into the community, create a lot more jobs.
The Netflix project is getting all these amazing accolades, as it should. But I don't think there's enough detail given to the infrastructure impact because the roads are not equipped to handle the volume of construction. There's just nowhere to go. Maybe we're going to have to go up. We'll have to have personalized air vehicles or something of that nature because there's no more roadways to create. I think the economic impact in Monmouth County and in the state of New Jersey should be sizable. They did get a lot of tax refunds and rebates from what I understand. So
property values are going to go up.
They already are.
They're going to go even more up.
And they've already taxed us higher here in New Jersey. Thank you so much. There that is. And
we would like to benefit and be under their roster as podcasters. Big
opportunity for Girls Gone Gritty here and now, 1000%.
Okay.
All right. Number 2, Bieberchella. Festival of Fun has just begun as Justin Bieber brings on shows that created authenticity and power.
When I was in Cali, it was dead compared to what it normally is because everybody was at Coachella for the weekend. Sabrina Carpenter did a big lights, camera, action, backdrop set, all of it. And Bieber was just Bieber. And he's getting all kinds of feedback. Our generation recognized that he's grown up in front of the world. And he went back in time and sang with his younger self to reflect on full circle. His little baby boy was there with Haley. And it was probably the most human experience that the 100,000 person crowd received. because he didn't need the drama and the pyrotechnics and sound. He just needed to be him. We all fell in love with that little boy that went viral on the internet, and we wanted more. And he gave everybody what they wanted. He played every song that made him who he is today. And what more? It was raw. It was real. What you see is what you get.
I think this trend with Justin is he's been through a lot, as you mentioned, but there's so much noise, lights, camera, pyrotechnics,
Overstimulation.
It's too much for the human brain. And we like the human side of people. And he's grown up in front of the camera. And as a parent, you have a different clarity as soon as you have children. Kudos to Beaver and Coachella. Let me tell you something. That's not a place for the faint of heart, because the backdrop, the outfits, the influencers, I cannot wait to see what See Here Now is going to be like in September.
I think the influencers are going to like our backdrop, and they're going to start coming in droves, unfortunately.
We don't want them here.
No.
But well, nothing we can do about it. Number 1, Apollo proved we could go anywhere in 1969 outside of planet Earth. But Artemis in 2026 is all about proving we can live, work, and build beyond Earth.
The new colors that we're seeing, the greens and the blues, showed that there is frozen ice on the moon, which is the equivalent of water for humans. So not only could they build a station there, we could eat, drink, bathe, and grow plants. It will be the next stop between Mars exploration, because they can build a sustainable base.
Well, listen, Elon Musk had a lot to do with this vision. He knew that we needed to do more space exploration because he does have a calling and a willingness to bring our species outside of planet Earth. And this is a beautiful thing. And if you were listening to any of the people who were on this mission and came back, they had such a perspective of how fragile and important planet Earth is. And I hope that in our quest to explore and get outside of the Earth, we remember how beautiful and amazing the planet Earth is. And it is a balance of those two ideas of knowing that we are part of a bigger universe, but knowing that being home here is incredibly important to take care of what we have.
What I love is Apollo was a masculine mission.
Apollo is the son of Zeus and the Greek and Roman god of sunlight.
And Artemis is female.
Artemis is the Greek goddess of the moon and is also Zeus's daughter.
With one of the first female astronauts
to go to the moon, Christina Koch.
She was innovative because of the tight crew that they had and just one of the leaders of this 4-person crew. And if you listened, and we'll post it again, the things that she said about the importance of having a crew. And that's what we have. And we want you to build your own crew of people that are following together in a synchronous way in a common goal and mission. And it's our ride or die idea where we're going to do this. We're going to get through this no matter what. We're not going to question one another. We're going to bring the best we can.
Working together in close, intimate spaces.
Absolutely.
In high pressure situations. Yes. She defined crew beautifully.
She did. And that crew, they're explorers. They're unbelievable human beings. I don't know that we value enough because astronauts have become so normalized with some of the just short stratosphere missions that they were doing, the ones that Oprah went on and all of those. That's not an astronaut. These are true astronauts.
Exactly.
So, the astronaut program started back
1959 with the creation of NASA.
And shout out to Bill Snow, my father, who worked on Apollo 11. He worked for Rockwell International, and they were responsible for developing the tiles that burned off the module as it re-entered the stratosphere. As I was cleaning out my parents' home, I came across some incredible Apollo 11 paraphernalia and propaganda and swag. And I will share that with you guys at one point because it's very cool. And I do have
you have a piece of history, really.
I have a piece of history.
I mean, I wouldn't even say it's propaganda or swag. I mean, it's legitimate history. And it's not only iconic, but it changed everything. It was a pivotal moment where the entire planet was on the same exact page. And that bringing us to our episode today. Really look back on history and over the decades that defined things and what that means for where we are today. And going back in life allows you to see, not be critical, but understand your history to make a better path forward on what you want to achieve in the coming years. We are in the 2020s, which started off bringing the year of COVID. So we're hoping that The second half would be a little bit different, but let's go backwards to go forwards.
We've pondered a lot about this because we were both born in the 70s. And the 70s are iconic for a lot of reasons, as are the 80s and 90s. And when you go to a party, you can go as a themed 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s party. We discussed this in the last podcast. However, what are you going to as a 2000 party, the 2010 party, the 2020 party? So it made us sad because the eras that we are going to go back in time and become nostalgic about were very special. And there were several things that they had in common. People were fully present, no constant interruptions. Socializing was intentional. You had to make a date and communicate in advance to put a plan on the map. Entertainment required effort. You had to go buy a ticket. You had to research what was coming. You had to find it. It wasn't at your fingertips. And work stayed work. It wasn't 24/7 because there were boundaries.
Yeah. Well, you had a work line and a home phone during this time period. Each decade has its own flavor. And before we get to our modern era, I went back 100 years. I wanted to go back to the 1920s. And I went from the 1920s up until today. And each decade has a different feeling to think about and ponder as we embark into a new millennium.
The roaring 20s,
So,
right?
yeah, the 20s were known as reckless optimism, which is obvious because it was decadence. It was the turn of the century. And when the Rockefellers became into play and there was so much money, it became a little bit crazy. And then the 30s, you had the Great Depression, a very hard survival time period.
Yeah.
And it defined many of people's childhood.
My grandmother said she walked down railroad tracks looking for stray pieces of coal that she could bring the coal home and they could use it to keep their house warm.
Yeah, it was tough times. And then that led us into the 40s, and the globe was dealing with the World War I and then World War II. So it no longer became about what your individual purpose was. We had this broader mission that everybody became a part of. And when you talk to anybody who was in the wars, it was calm after the World War II ended. And the 50s, known for the happy homemaker. Everybody's happy. Everyone wants the American dream. It's the time of stability and conformity. A lot of our parents were born in this time period, late 30s, early 40s. They were born when things were starting to calm down.
My mom said when she was born in Annapolis, while her mother was giving birth, my grandmother, they had to turn all the lights off in the hospital because they didn't want to be bombed. The whole city had to go black.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And my father, during this time, immigrated from Glasgow, Scotland. He immigrated, like many people did, through Ellis Island because opportunity was created after World War II. And America was a place that anything was possible. You could build your dreams in the United States. And from there, the pendulum swings. And we see where the 60s were about rebellion and awakening. It was peace, love, and happiness. And let's not be involved in the Vietnam War. And I want to be heard on the college campuses. I feel like when you go through these things, you get a sense of the energy of the decade, and it makes sense as to why people operate the way they do. Now we're coming into the time period where Farley and I are going to focus our episode on, which is the 70s, because it's the decade in which we were born. And that was disillusionment and grit.
No way.
Word to God. That's what it's known for. Disillusionment and grit. Let's be real. Let's tell the truth.
I found freedom, experimentation, and pushing boundaries. That's gritty.
That's great.
Going back to the Apollo mission, they coined Earth as the Big Blue Marble, which was one of my favorite shows as a kid. And the Big Blue Marble was like international understanding for kids. And I got my first pen pal because they had a pen pal segment. I could write into the Big Blue Marble and they would match us with somebody from across the world. And I had a legit pen pal from, I don't remember where it was.
Oh my gosh. I forgot I did that. Yes. And I totally did that.
Yes.
I had a pen pal too. And I feel like it was from like South America. And I feel like back in the day when you had to write out the envelope and you had to put stamps on the envelope.
Big deal.
You had to go and get the international, do you remember
white, and blue.
The red, white, and you had to fold it.
Yes.
And it couldn't weigh more. And you were trying to find like little spaces to write around the corner. And my kids probably can't even address an envelope. That's the crazy thing. Go to the post office. Why would I possibly go there?
And the Big Blue Marble had a beautiful jingle that I still know to this day, which is also something from the 70s. I can't remember tomorrow. Great. I can't remember today, but I can remember a Big Blue Marble theme song. And iconic movies like Jaws and Star Wars. That was the first movie my dad took me to. And that is as special as it gets. All in the Family, Three's Company,
Yeah.
Happy Days, The Jeffersons, Charlie's Angels, Little House on the Prairie, which we both loved, and MASH. Think about the song for MASH and Cheers. You know, it's right at the tip of our tongues, yet I can't remember what I did 2 days ago.
Right. And that's largely, again, getting back to like the framework of the episode, is because when we did things in the 70s, we did them as a collective unit, a collective society. Everyone was like, oh, are you watching whatever show?
Sunny Share.
And because there were 3 networks.
Yep.
And when the networks were done at 2:00 in the morning, they shut off and the lines went on and were done until they decided to pick up programming again in the morning. There was not a 24-hour cycle of anything. And if you missed it, you missed it.
I remember being so excited on a weekend. I would get up and I go into my TV room and watch cartoons before my dad and mom were up with my bowl of cereal, and how simple that was in life, but I look forward to it.
Absolutely. And how much that has changed. Cartoons are not what they were, and kids don't really watch cartoons, which I don't think is a bad thing, because we're getting up early and taking them to some sporting event. Maybe that's a good balance now, that kids are getting outside into structured sports and not waking up and watching 4 hours of television like I remember doing when I was a kid.
Something relaxing about that.
It was.
We needed a break after Monday through Friday.
I agree.
I do believe that the sports is on overdrive.
Yes.
And it does not hurt for somebody to sit down and watch a few cartoons. We could all use more cartoons in the world.
Especially because the cartoons of the day, like many of the shows of the day, had a bit of a moral responsibility where they taught you a lesson, or they at least made you think about things.
The ABC After School Special, even Carol Burnett. I would watch that with my parents. I would watch, Benny Hill with my dad. That was funny because it was naughty. I look back and I was so content and comfortable watching 60 Minutes and hearing that ticking time watch, and knowing that 60 Minutes was on Sunday. And I was going to sit down with my parents and listen to what Walter Cronkite had to say.
American Bandstand was a phenomenal show with Dick Clark.
That's what I listened to go to bed at night.
To bring you new artists.
40 or whatever.
Yeah. That's American Top 40.
Casey Kasem.
Yep. Casey Kasem. But what you just said, rang a chord too. You would sit down with your parents and watch television. And that, again, is what's happening less and less, where you had this unifying television program that came on every week at the same time. If you missed it, you missed it.
Hee Haw.
Hee Haw.
I would watch Hee Haw with my parents and Lawrence Welk. We watched that as a family.
Good night, sleep tight, and let your dreams come true.
The Sonny and Cher show. There were a lot of collabs that happened during the 70s, and the variety show got steam because people wanted relief and to be entertained, and All in the Family shifted everything. It became more socially aware, morally aware, politically charged. Not so PC, not so politically correct. Archie's character really tried to stir things up. And Rob Reiner, who was a large part of that show, who went on to do many other amazing television programs and movies from there, they really pushed the envelope in a time period where it was not being done.
Rob Reiner continued to push the envelope
Yes,
in a not so great way. And it's a tragic situation, the way that ended. Wowza. The 80s was the land of the yuppies. The young urban professional came out of nowhere.
Yeah. Excess and ambition.
Obsessed with health, wealth, and fitness.
Yes, it was.
And advertising consumerism came to light.
They recognized the power of the dollar and how powerful you could be.
Oh, yeah.
And the more things you could do when you had the dollar. So everyone was in wealth acquisition, and it was when the monetization began. I got my fitness certification in college in 1989, and that was right in the infancy of the fitness industry. And it was tiny if you look at in that time. Jane Fonda started it a bit before, but it was really the ability for people to say, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to spend money on it, and I'm going to go to the gym. People had more time, a little bit more of a ease in economics, and being able to not have to work in the yard. They paid somebody to do that. All these things were kind of changing during this time period, where businesses were popping up to make your life more convenient.
In the 80s, my gym outfits were G-string, one pieces or two pieces that would go over a booty short. It's interesting that was happening back then, because I don't remember everybody wearing thongs back in the day, but we definitely wore thongs to the gym.
Yeah, thank you again, Jane Fonda. My college roommate was a thong wearer back before thongs were a thing, like full on thong. And
Maybe thongs existed, but my friends were not wearing them.
her dad took her thong shopping for our trip to Daytona Beach. We went to Daytona Beach, and she was in a thong, and we were all like trying to like protect her because obviously it was a time period where no one wore them.
He's a creep,
and
Dad was really proud of her wearing it.
He was. It was weird.
MTV redefined how music was consumed, and it became visual and not just audio. And visual TV became a big thing.
First song on it, video killed the radio star. If that didn't tell you what was happening.
It's so true. Miami Vice, I was so obsessed with the look of it and the money and the glitz and the glamour and the boats and cars. And then tech became a big thing. I was obsessed with Pac-Man and
Atari,
Nintendo. Sony Walkmans came out of nowhere, late 70s, early 80s. Another thing that I looked forward to every single weekend was Love Boat and Fantasy Island.
Oh my gosh, when I was babysitting, that would be all I did.
Yes. Put the kids to bed and you'd be so psyched.
So psyched.
And who was going to be the guest star on Love Boat and who was going to be the guest star on Fantasy Island.
And what an easy, innovative formula they had.
Easy.
The backdrop was the same. The core cast was the same.
And you loved them.
Basically, they plugged in different guests that were celebs.
Who didn't love Gopher? Who didn't love Captain Steubing? Julie McCoy.
Cruise director.
I make references to Love Boat and Fantasy Island all the time because it took me to another place every time I sat down and watched those shows. And when there was a 2-hour special,
oh my goodness,
I would tell my parents 2 weeks in advance, I have to stay up extra late. I want permission to stay up extra late because it's a 2-hour Love Boat special.
Oh,
Michael Jackson, Madonna, Prince, pop stars became brands, shoulder pads, neon colors, spandex, leg warmers, designer labels. This is how we grew up. It was simple. It was simpler times. All I wanted was a TV dinner. If my parents went out and I had a babysitter, I just wanted a TV dinner. Isn't that ridiculous?
The Hungry Man
or banquet.
A banquet.
I know. It did come with warm dessert and
potatoes
in
a plastic container, and you peel the thing off.
It was a gimmick,
and put it in the microwave. And that's when the microwave came out.
Yeah,
it was like the mid 70s, early 80s.
I wanted it.
I remember wanting a microwave, thinking we were so cool once we got our microwave, so we could pop our TV dinners into the microwave. What were we trying to make so simple? We needed TV that much. That was an incredible marketing tool.
And there's so many other things. Sometimes you can smell something or you hear something and it takes you back in time. These are memories that bring me joy.
Yeah.
Because it was such a part of our lives. And I feel sad for this generation. I feel sad for my own kids. I asked my husband this morning when I told him that we were doing the segment, and I said, we're talking about the 70s, the 80s and 90s, the 2000s. What does that stand for? I'm going to a 2000s party. I'm going to a 2010 party. And he's like, the girls really enjoyed Justin Bieber and the Jonas Brothers and Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana. But that's not exactly an era. I don't know how to explain what our kids are. They all going to dress in 70s, 80s, 90s.
Right. It was more clearly defined. And that is because of the globalization of everything and the information that we have. Everything is available to you. And there's not one specific trend. When we were growing up, we all wore our hair the same way. Everybody
wanted
hair the
or perms,
curls, or perms. Oh my God, I got a perm all the time.
And apple pectin.
Everybody had perms. We all used the same hairspray, literally.
Aquanet.
See, we didn't even grow up together. We all used Aquanet. It's not that way anymore.
I know.
There's a million products, a million programs, a million opportunities to do what you want to do. And I think it's interesting to grow up in this time period. It's a balance of both, where I can do anything and be accepted, but I don't have anything that defines me either.
I think we just created a challenge for Girls Gone Gritty. We are going to come up with what we think is symbolic of the 2000s.
And it cannot be a COVID mask.
No, oh God, no.
But it was. But let me tell you, when you think about
that's 2020.
Yeah.
I'm talking 2000.
Oh, 2000. Well, that's just Y2K.
No, Y2K we're going to do. And I think like if we can do Y2K and 2010 and bring positives and try to create themed party, we were a part of it. We saw what they were doing. I was married in 2000. I gave birth to Mackenzie in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our challenge, to try to come up with the dress up party.
One of the things I would put on that list would be juicy couture jumpsuits. Those became really hot in that time period.
They were athleisure before it was cool. I mean, they did it right.
The velour and the
juicy on the butt.
Juicy, yeah.
And they fit nicely. They were flattering. They weren't frumpy sweats. They looked good. They channeled the energy of being attractive but still being comfortable, and it really stuck.
Yeah, chasing after your kids and looking like you put yourself together a little bit.
And you know who's behind Juicy?
No, I don't.
The wives of Duran Duran. Oh, yes. Simon Le Bon's wife. I know, Yasmin. We're such a cult-like thing out of California, but it makes sense. They were on the road. Their husbands were rock stars, and they found comfortable, functional, attractive athleisure when it was needed.
Oh my God, I love Duran Duran. I was obsessed.
Yes.
And then Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Relax.
The relax shirt.
So
I mean, come on.
Freedom, George Michael.
Love him. It was a good.
We can finish each other's sentences from these eras.
My adult children, my 22 and 26-year-old, and even my younger guy, 20, love this music. The retro music, like Tears for Fears. Oh, yeah. And if you haven't listened to the Tears for Fears lyrics, I'm shocked I haven't put it on our Girls Gone Gritty yet, but
that's coming next.
Some of their lyrics are so ahead of their time, and I know I wasn't paying attention, whether it was because I didn't have a critical ear yet. I really,
and yet I can sing it and tell you every single word. Shout, shout, let it all out.
Come on, I'm talking to you. Come on,
yeah.
In violent times, you do have to go backwards, because when I try and pull up modern day poets, lyricists, performers, I'm not as encapsulated with some of the lyrics. They tend to feel a little more shallow. And I don't know if it's because I'm not hearing them the way they intend, or I don't understand the language. Maybe it's both. To me, when I go backwards and listen to songs of the 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s, those 4 decades, they're so much more powerful than the 50s and the 40s, where it was not okay to talk about things. That was a really interesting musical timepiece when we talk about what people were talking about.
That movie was like such a spectacular example of people that might not be allowed to consume music.
Yeah.
In certain communities, places, certain religions, and music is a version of freedom of speech. And it takes a critical ear. I think as kids, for some reason, we can memorize every single lyric. Another phenomenon that happened in the 70s was Schoolhouse Rocks. It was a brilliantly thought out campaign, because the average testing scores were down across the U.S., yet every kid could remember the lyrics to most rock songs.
And because most of the kids were spending 4 hours a day watching cartoons.
Cartoons and then onto MTV.
Exactly.
So, but it's true. Music is a way not only to express yourself, but it is a way to consume information. Because if you're listening, you're learning. And a lot of people are storytellers. And if they're not storytellers, they're talking about an era in time and what's going on around us. And you can feel it, taste it, and smell it. So
yeah, and it has a rhythm to it. And I think that's why they absorb so much. If it's got a cadence and your brain understands it with the 8 beats in a measure, then and you kind of are anticipating what comes next, right? So putting any important idea to music just helps to solidify that remembrance.
And there's repetition with the chorus, you know.
There's the other part that's complicated. And we watched it as we moved into the 90s, when grunge really took a hold, and where it was, disillusionment, and the lyrics then suddenly shifted. And I remember having a hard time with it. Like, this kind of hurts my ears. Some of the music that was coming out during that period was challenging.
That music matched my life. I had just graduated from college and I moved down to Miami, and I figured out who Farley Boyle was. Well, Farley Snow then. Because I was always the goody two-shoe, only child.
Absolutely.
In college, I played a sport, and now I'm raw, which is the way that this is explained.
Yep.
The 90s were raw and culturally diverse. So I moved to this diverse city, and grunge was in, and I loved Nirvana. I loved Nine Inch Nails. I liked hard, thrashy, screaming lyrics. And it wasn't because I was angry. It was because I was expressing my freedom, and I wanted to dance, and I wanted to slam and get into a mosh pit and kind of be out of control.
Yeah, like Naughty by Nature. But I think I went more toward the alternative rock, where like I was gravitating more to REM. They were more alternative rock and were pushing the envelope in lyrics and things, but they weren't as Nirvana-esque. And I remember appreciating Nirvana at the time, but I remember thinking it's a little bit much.
I loved Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, I loved Rage Against
I
the Machine.
freaking loved.
But quietly in my car, but not out.
This music made me feel something, and I was allowed to let it loose and to kind of be wild for the first time ever. And that music represented that because of the way it made me feel. It's not about the lyrics. It was just the sound. And it was the rebellion of I was out and partying and doing things that I'd never done before. And it was fun as hell. But there was also hip hop, and I loved hip hop. I feel like Notorious B.I.G., I like that whole phase of my life.
Mary J. Blige, she was.
I loved Mary J. I loved Lauryn Hill.
She was great. But when we talk about the 90s, culture is defined by the music, but the further you get along the spectrum, the harder it is to clearly define what people were wearing.
Oh my God, jeans and t-shirts, and flannels, sneakers, and distressed clothing. That was grunge. And then hip hop was like thug, big hoodies. Where were Z Cavariccis, by the way? And Capezio shoes and members only jackets.
That was late 80s. Boys to Men, BBC, BD.
Baby's Got Back.
Oh, but we also had Parachute Pant Guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
No,
who was that?
No. Baby's Got Back is.
But who is that?
Hold on, I can see him.
I can
MC Hammer.
MC Hammer, yes.
Hammer, I went.
MC Hammer pants.
You do have to come back and be like, okay, brain. Turn back on. I know it's there.
That was an ugly trend. And I remember seeing guys out that had Z Cavariccis or parachute pants and Capezio shoes and a members only jacket.
Phenomenal.
It's like Seinfeld sneakers to me. It's
so phenomenal. It's so phenomenal.
The movies that came out in the 90s were so iconic, like Titanic, Jurassic Park, and the TV sitcoms, Friends, Seinfeld. And reality TV started because of the MTV influence.
Yes.
So you started to see that. And then going back to Love Story, Calvin Klein's clean, natural, minimalistic look was a big deal. And supermodels emerged.
So clean, minimalistic, and supermodels. So those two things are interesting because they're not really congruent, which the terminology for the 90s is irony and globalization, which makes perfect sense as to what was happening during this time period, because everybody wanted to be chippy funny as Seinfeld, and that kind of humor was becoming more of the norm, where you could be witty and say what you wanted to say without being offensive.
It took intelligence.
Correct.
Yes.
And understand the bigger nature of the world, which is what he did.
And the rise of the internet was happening, and Windows 95 and PlayStation, Game Boy. So tech kept on ramping, and Blackberries and
the Blackberries, and then email began. The technology piece that was starting to emerge in the late 90s before Y2K. As we come into 2000, for those of you that are younger than us and didn't live through Y2K, it was a time where everyone was concerned for almost a year that all of the computers across the world would instantaneously combust, literally not work anymore. So just visualize, you have 4 numbers in your birthday, right? 1999 happened and it was going to roll over. They didn't know, was the 2 going to actually turn over and become 2000? It's
like Nostradamus predicting the end of the world.
And people
only for a whole year
in my circle stockpiled food. They had an emergency contingency plan where we would meet up. It's very interesting, the human psyche on this.
Like watching The Simpsons to see if they predict. I'd like to actually go back and see if they did a spoof of Y2K, and because they would have nailed it.
And it seems ridiculous now that, like, how did we think the whole world could potentially collapse because our systems weren't going to be able to handle this change? It really defined what has happened in the new millennium. So that shock and acceleration is the definition of what happened come the millennia. Those are the words that have come out. And it makes sense because everyone came out of Y2K being like, thank God we're okay. We made it. We didn't have to go to the shelters. Thank God the world is going to continue. What's next?
We're still here.
And then the internet.
We don't need to catch you guys up from 2000 on, because we've all lived it and been a part of it. I feel sad for the younger generation that they didn't get to experience a simpler way of life. And I feel like Jen and I refer to it in almost every episode, from movie characters not looking obese when we were growing up to the simpler time of living and watching programs with our parents, to burning a CD, making a tape for someone, going the extra mile.
It was more intentional. Living was more intentional. I feel like I have less time now. I don't feel like I have more time. I feel like the days go by and
we're multitasking because of this horrible phone.
And it's a problem. And it really encapsulates what happened in 2010, which I'll just round out the last two decades. So 2010 became identity and exposure. So that's the rise of our social media, rise of all these platforms. That's a rise of tech. And then in 2020, we're in fragmentation and a redefinition.
Is fragmentation the word that they really use?
They really use fragmentation. And it kind of makes sense, though, because you have all these silos of every human that can operate within their own universe of what they see, both on social media and what they consume and what gets fed to them. And it makes perfect sense as to why, our Instagram feeds, we've talked about this, we share a brain. And her Instagram feeds her one thing, and my Instagram feed feeds me something else. And I see what my kids' feeds look like. Well, just my algorithm now. And it's intentional on them trying to give us what they think we want. And is that a good thing or is that a bad thing?
What I would like for you guys to do is go to your Instagram and search out 1970s pop culture, 1980s, 1990s, and people have thoughtfully, or maybe it's AI, created videos that take you back in time. And they're really fun to watch. And there is a feeling of nostalgia that is eminent when I watched several of them, from getting on bikes and riding with a gang of kids to having, kids that were more ballsy than others doing tricks and trying to fly over garbage cans on their skateboard, to, having to be home right before the sun went down, but your parents didn't ask you, okay, what did you do? They just said, go clean up.
Yeah.
We had no GPSs. They didn't know what we were doing. I set a fire in a park and could have gotten in big trouble, but we were able to put it out quickly. I was obsessed with fire. I don't know why, but I learned a valuable lesson, because you have to have these moments of freedom where you're learning and you're falling down and you're doing something bad and you escaped by the skin of your teeth. You outran a cop or you hid from somebody creepy, whatever, to survive as an adult. And I feel like that's what our youth did. We weren't micromanaged. Everything wasn't controlled. We were exactly who we were supposed to be. We were dirty kids coming in like the Tide commercials.
Yeah.
And it's a bummer, because my kids always look at me and say, I wish that we grew up when you grew up. And I wish that they did too. Same. Because it was not dominated by a phone. We were present and
intentional.
Yes.
Intentional. You were close. That's why I didn't think it was intent.
It was intentional. Yeah.
Well, we're not going backwards. We are moving forward. We're going to give a shout out to a town next to us that I think does an amazing thing in this day and age, where Fairhaven Schools still lets their kids go home
for lunch.
Those kids know that they believe in their choices. And we had an episode that we'll reference back to the Balance Project. Holly, understand that technology is what it is and we can't go backwards.
We have to coexist.
But we need to take back some of these moments where kids can go play and you can be off your device and immerse yourself into music or a TV show as a family, and being a part of a community that lets kids bike ride by themselves and not need 24 hours.
Yes, I loved my lunchbox and my Tupperware lunchbox. When I grew out of my animated lunchbox, then I had my orange Tupperware. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And you pulled it apart and it had a sandwich box and everything that you needed. I was never allowed to leave school for lunch, but I do appreciate that Fairhaven allows that to happen. And I miss my Trapper Keeper. And my school supplies back then.
I miss the back to school, like gear up. I feel like September is the beginning of the year for me. I will always feel like September is January 1st.
I'm going to carry on this incredible vibe right now with our Got Grit Award winner of today. Getting jiggy with it. And that would be Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow started the Tim Tebow Foundation. And I'm going to tell you exactly when he decided that he was going to give back in life. And it wasn't after he became a giant football star. The inception of the vision that would have become the Tim Tebow Foundation came to Tim when he was just 15 years old, serving in the jungles of the Philippines in a remote village. Tim met a boy named Sherwin, and he was born with his feet backwards. Among his people, Sherman was seen as a cursed, insignificant throwaway. When Tim met him, he felt God put it on his heart that Sherwin wasn't a throwaway, but was worthy of love and infinitely valuable. During his time there, and for a very long time after he left the Philippines, Tim began to feel a tug at his heart to steer life towards fighting for vulnerable boys and girls, just like Sherwin, and felt this calling was going to be how he was going to serve people in the world. That being said, in 2010, he started the foundation with a mission that actively fights human trafficking, child exploitation, prevention, rescue operations, and survivor care. They collaborate with law enforcement to identify victims, support safe homes, and use technology to disrupt trafficking networks globally. And their motto is they fight for the MVP. MVP is the most vulnerable people around the world. Wow. And his mission is to bring faith, hope, and love to those needing a brighter day in their darkest hour of need, which also includes kids born with deformities, getting them adopted. He is doing God's work. And I love that he came up with this idea before he was this gorgeous football hero. He recognized that not all people were born equally and not all people were given talents and blessings. And he decided to roll up his sleeves and create a philanthropic mission that helps the MVPs of the world.
I think that's so beautiful because we forget that there are so many gifts that you are given that you had no choice in getting. And the fact that he's able to take and elevate and give back in such a spiritually beautiful
I guarantee awesome. Tim Tebow at 15 was adorable, athletic, coordinated, and at the top of his game, and probably never came across that deformity or a handicap like that. Imagine being born with your feet backwards and being ostracized by your community. It changed his life, and he vowed that he was going to give back, and he sure has. And what he's doing with the sex trafficking is incredible. So I recommend that you look up the Tim Tebow Foundation and see if you can participate or give back or just be aware of all the good things that they're doing.
God bless Tim Tebow. Let's get to our song of the week. We took you back through history, and I did not mention one of my favorite bands, giving you a little clue, Farley. You've been so kind and generous. I don't know how you keep giving. For your kindness, I'm in debt to you. For your selflessness, my admiration. For everything you've done, you know I'm bound. I'm bound to thank you.
I can't. Why do I suck at this?
You don't. It's okay. So 10,000 Maniacs is a hint. It's the lead singer from 10,000 Maniacs. It's kind and generous. And I give everybody in my family a song. This is my parents' song. She's an incredible lyricist. Lennox. And no, it's...
Oh, shit. No, Merchant. Sorry. Yeah, I suck at
I was at an event and I sat next to the drummer of 1000 Maniacs this past Monday. So that was fun.
Wow. I love Natalie Merchant's solo album when she went on her own.
Yeah. That's what this is from. This is from 1998. So it's
why I missed it.
After she left the 10,000 Maniacs. But tune in and make sure you listen to that playlist because there's so many inspirational songs. Our Got Grit person is always gritty. They are real, just as we are with you. And we appreciate you. We'd love to hear from you.
Hopefully we took you on a great walk through memory lane.
You can take your kids through some decades from your past.
Share stories. The kids love to hear it. They want to know what we were like at their age, what we were doing. Make time for stories because your kids want to hear them and then they live by them and through them and try to have similar experiences. I hear so often from Mackenzie, I'm never going to have a life like you had. Well, she's doing crazier things than me.
Just life is a trade-off too, though. So there's that. Just live life, enjoy it, know and learn from history. Like us, share us, and keep tuning in.
See you on Thursday.